You're listening to The Rant.
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
You're listening.
So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway.
You fucking crazy, man. You sound insane. Do you realize that?
To The Rant.
I speak jive.
Oh, good.
I've been saying it. I've been saying it for 10 damn years. Ain't I been saying it, Miguel? Huh? I've been saying it.
You're listening to The Rant with David King.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Rant. I am your host, David King. It is good to be here with you on Tuesday, January 24th. I'm going to jam out for a minute. I was listening to Metallica on the way back home, so I'm in the mood to rock out. I don't know about you guys. You know, there's just something about the way it hits. You know? You know, that opening? It's gonna melt your face. Get ready for it. If your heart isn't beating a mile a minute and you're not ready to just get it and attack this day, I don't know what to tell you. You're dead. Check your pulse. Man, it is good to be here. This opening's got me hyped and ready to do this podcast with you today.
Back into the air,
Yeah.
with a ripple sand, throwing all you see into obscurity. Death and blood.
I'm going to tell you what, there's just something about Metallica. If you don't like Metallica, you can get the hell out. Just as simple as that. See yourself to the door, my friend. Golly, there's just something about it. You know what I mean? There's just something about those intros, a big guitar and the drums. It just gets me pumped up and ready to go. I'm just ready to do it. I'm ready to jump into this stuff. Woo! Anyway, oh geez. Sorry, glitch on the soundboard there. Didn't realize the intro was still playing. Anyway, it's good to be here with you guys. It's January 24th. I'm feeling great. It might be the fact that I had a whole lot of beef organs today, which just has me a little jacked up. Got lots of energy, feeling really good. And you'd say, beef organs? Ugh, what are you talking about? Well, we'll get to that. That is the subject of this podcast. No, not beef organs. That's part of it. But this is your update. The update to NSNG. NSNG, no sugar, no grain. It has been officially now 1 year and 3 months of doing NSNG. I know it's crazy to think that I've been doing this diet for that long, but I have. And so, in fact, if we go over here and we look, the last episode that I posted about the diet was back on June 28th. So we did kind of a midway podcast where I got to speak with a good friend of mine, Tina Buck. She came on. She was very interested in the diet. and learning about it. And I felt like it was a really good opportunity to really do an in-depth, deep dive on the diet. And so, but I started this back in October of last year. So it's been, about a year and 3 months now at this point. October 2021. Let me tell you, I'm feeling great. Like y'all know, my energy's through the roof. I feel good. I'm ready to just attack the day. Let's see here. My weight is currently at 168. I'm 168 pounds and holding. My weight fluctuates by 2 or 3 pounds, but I don't really worry about that sort of fluctuation because that could be anything. That could be water weight. That could be anything. The lowest my weight had been on this diet was 165. That was a bit lower than I was ever anticipating. I spoke about this in the last show I did about NSNG. I never anticipated my weight going down that low. I actually never thought I'd ever hit 168. I wanted to get to 185. That was my Marine Corps weight. That's my fighting weight, if you will. And I was happy with that. Like that was my goal, but it just kept melting off. And so the lowest I went to 165, and it fluctuates between there and 168, 170. And really that's about where I want to be. I'm not in the gym right now. I'm not working out. I'm not doing any physical exercise, mainly because I'm in the trades business. I'm a contractor. And right now I'm building a huge addition on the back of my house. So that is my workout. I climb ladders. I lift heavy things. I'm on my feet all day. And so that's acceptable. So if you're listening to this and you're in the trades and you're on your feet all day and you're carrying, maybe you're a plumber, you're carrying pipe, or you're an electrician and you're climbing up and down ladders, doing all these sorts of things, you really don't have to go to the gym. You know, the gym is for people who want to bulk up, right? Like maybe you want to you want to put on a massive amount of muscle mass. That's your goal. Or you're just someone who wants to be physically fit and they don't necessarily work a very, maybe you work in an office, you're working behind a desk. You're not really doing anything that's that strenuous physically. So that's a good place to go to get that done, is the gym. But if you do work a strenuous job, and this kind of goes for like waitresses too. Like I'm not just leaving this to the trades. If you're on your feet all day and you're getting those steps in and you're putting that kind of, then you're moving, your body is moving. You may want to add some sort of strength training regimen into your routine. If all you do is you're on your feet all day, you're not actually doing any physical activity as far as lifting things or anything like that, you may want to then. But all in all, my weight's kind of where I want it to be. I am interested in starting to do some strength training, put some muscle mass on, and see where that goes. So that is something I will probably start to do later this year. I just have too much going on around my house. Most of you already know. I'm building the addition. My house flooded for the second time. Hopefully the last. And so my house is a wreck. And so it's up to me to put it back together and get it right. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So that's my focus right now. My blood pressure is way down. I'm happy to report that my blood pressure is at a much normal level than it ever has been. I've always kind of had higher blood pressure. Even in the Marine Corps, like they would say like, yeah, it's a little higher than maybe normal, but nothing to be alarmed about. Your heart sounds good and everything like that. Never gave me any reason to be concerned. But it's down, which is good. My resting BPM, so my beats per minute, my resting heartbeats per minute, when I last checked was about 70, which was much lower than what it was before. I think it was over 90 at one time when they checked it. That's how bad off I was, I think. Prior to starting this diet, I think I was becoming very, very much metabolically broken. I was overweight. I was not feeling very good. My energy levels were down. My anxiety was up. Everything about me was not feeling good. I knew that what I was doing was not good for me. And I knew I had issues. And when I went and got my physical, that's when I kind of came to the conclusion back in October of last year. Well, excuse me. It's the new year. And I'm saying last year. I apologize. October 2021. I apologize, everybody. I just caught myself. So October of the year before. So my bad. But I realized I got my physical done. I got really nasty blood work back. I found out my cholesterol was through the roof. And I was like, yeah, my cholesterol's high. And, we all know now that cholesterol really doesn't mean anything. I'm not really too worried about my LDL levels. I actually haven't had it rechecked since I've been on this diet. I have not had, well, that's not true. I had my LDL checked in May of 2022. Yes. I'm trying to get all my dates right because I forgot. It's 2023 now. May of 2022, I had a follow-up for my cholesterol, and it actually went up higher, which I found out later on that actually that is quite normal, even though the doctors all panicked and they think I'm going to die of a heart attack. And they're all freaking out and they want me to go see a lipidologist, and I won't do it. I'm just not going to do it. You guys can follow me here. If I die of a heart attack, you'll know about it because I won't be doing this show anymore. But I don't need to go see a lipidologist. I don't need to go get a calcium score scanning. I'm 34 years old. I feel great. If my blood pressure hadn't gone down or my resting ppm wasn't lower, if a few other things, like if I began to notice a lot of improvement in my life in terms of heart and muscle function. Had I not experienced that in the course of last year, I probably would have gone to see a lipidologist or at least got a calcium score. Because then I was like, okay, let's go follow up and let's just do our due diligence. Even though I know through my research that LDL has nothing to do with atherosclerosis, heart disease. It does not have anything to do with it. If you go back and you look at the studies, those studies will show it's not conclusive that LDL is the reason why high levels of LDL, which is the bad cholesterol. There's two cholesterol. You have HDL and you have LDL. Okay. High levels of LDL, they tell you if your LDL is at a certain level, you're at higher risk for heart disease. There's no study that actually shows that. Now they have come to the conclusion that's what they've concluded because people with heart disease and atherosclerosis tend to have LDL, high levels of LDL in their blood. Well, of course they do. But, your LDL is going to be in your blood. That's where it lives. But the thing that they don't take into account is overwhelmingly the people who have the heart disease, the atherosclerosis, all these, and I know I'm butchering that, they're also metabolically broken. They tend to be diabetic, pre-diabetic. They might be suffering from fatty liver disease. They may have a myriad of other issues medically. So it's not necessarily that it's the LDL causing it. It very well could be the diabetes that causes it. And I think I don't remember if I did a show about this, and I wasn't really going to talk about it, but since I'm on this path, I am going to briefly touch on what I mean by this. Because you're thinking, when we think of diabetes, everyone thinks of, blood sugar, right? Your blood sugar is all out of whack. Your body's you're either not producing insulin or you're producing too much insulin or this, that, or the other. But the problem with, what do we know about diabetics? And we're talking about type 2 diabetics here specifically, is that, diabetics tend to have issues with blood flow. They also have issues with healing. In other words, they get a wound and the wound takes a long time to heal. In fact, it could take an unusually a longer amount of time to heal. And in some cases, it doesn't heal. And that's why there's cases of amputation. You hear about a diabetic losing a toe or losing their leg or arm or something. And this is one of the reasons why. And so what happens in our arteries? Well, there's a lot of pressure there. And if you look at plaque buildup in arteries, where does it normally build up at first? Well, it tends to develop around the areas where your arteries split off. So right where they fork and around those areas, that's where you start to see the major blockages occur And the reason why is when your blood pushes through there, it can cause irritation into the artery wall. Well, your body heals that. It's part of the process. Well, if you're someone who's a diabetic and isn't healing properly, in other words, a minor cut could be on you for a week instead of just a few days. What do you think is happening inside your body? And that's what we have. So you have a ton of inflammation in the arterial wall, and there's nothing to heal it, or it doesn't have enough time to heal. And so plaque develops, and then you have blockages. So that's what's going on. I don't believe in any study, there's no conclusive study to make me believe that LDL is the sole reason why you're going to develop heart disease. I think it's a myth. There's no conclusive evidence of it. All the studies do not take into account pre-existing conditions. They don't take into account what people are eating or what their lifestyle is or what kind of, what their medical history is like. The thing about food studies, and again, we can say this about every food study, right? And I'm going to touch on a food study later on about honey. You could kind of poke holes in everything. And in some cases, yes, you can. And in other cases, no. But food studies are tough. And the reason why it's so hard and why we really, and I know people get frustrated because they go, oh man, it's like every day it changes. Like one day the egg's good for you. Then the next day the egg's bad for you. Now it's good again. Or no, now it's just whites. Now it's just yolk. Look, the reason why they have such a hard time getting this correct is because in order to do a proper study, you have to have a control group. And the reality is they never have one. And they can't, because you'd have to get like thousands of babies at birth, right? They'd have to be healthy, no pre-existing condition at birth, right? Nothing. And then you'd have to essentially control their diet all the way through their life in order to understand what it is this food is really doing to them. And even then, you're not going to get the same results because everybody is so much different. Food reacts differently in our bodies. That's why some people can eat broccoli and they feel just fine. And then there's people who eat broccoli and get absolutely sick, right? We're all a little bit different. And it's really hard to kind of gauge, what things are doing. But if we can use our common sense here for just a minute, right? We do have common sense. We do have some logical thinking. We can think logically here. And we look at the data. What kind of data can we look at to reinforce my opinion that LDL has no effect on your heart, your overall heart health? Well, first of all, we know LDL is important. Your body produces it. If you fast for any amount of time, your LDL will raise, which is why I think my LDL was elevated to some degree in May of last year when I got it rechecked. Your LDL will also increase when you go on NSNG on a diet. When you cut out carbohydrates, your LDL will increase naturally as you're shedding fat. As you're burning fat, you go into fat burning mode, your body's breaking down fat cells and turning it into energy, your LDL will go up. Your body will produce more LDL. It's a natural occurrence. So if you're losing weight, let's say last month you lost 10 pounds, this month you're on track to lose another 10 pounds. If you had your LDL checked, your cholesterol checked, it would be elevated. And that's natural. It's normal. So your body produces this. So why would our body naturally produce something even when you're fasting? In other words, you're not eating anything. Why would it produce something that supposedly is the thing that will kill you? It doesn't make very much sense. Keep in mind too, 20 or 30 years ago, an LDL of 200 was normal. Now an LDL of 200 is the alarm bells sound and everyone's going into full crisis mode and they want to put you on a statin. And it's just, no, we're not doing that. Another thing we can look at is data overall on the mass of people in the United States, or at least in the Western world. We can look at the United States. We can look at the data. Meat consumption, right? Red meat, which is the big enemy number one for doctors. They don't want you eating all this red meat. Meat consumption in the United States is down, right? It's much lower than it used to be. And yet heart disease is even higher. So if in fact saturated fats from animals and red meat and cholesterol was the reason why is the reason for heart disease, then why is it heart disease not going down? In theory, if everyone is starting to if they're starting to consume less fat, which is very true, we're all consuming less fat, but just about everything has a fat-free option. And if you talk to anybody, they'll tell you that's the better option than the regular full-fat option, because that's the way they've been taught. Everyone I talk to, their brains explode when I tell them avoid fat-free options and eat the fat option, right? Full-fat cheese, full-fat yogurt, full-fat, sour cream, full-fat milk, full-fat everything. Do not get fat-free. Fat-free is not better for you. You're not going to get fat from eating fat. That's not how it works. Okay? But I digress. So we are consuming less fat. We're consuming less meat because everyone is, for a myriad of a million reasons. There's a lot of reasons out there why people don't eat meat. Some people don't eat meat because they think it's bad for you. Some people don't eat meat because they don't want to kill an animal. They believe the vegan diet's the way to go. So our meat consumption's lower. Our saturated fat intake is lower. And yet, heart disease continues to go up. Heart disease is the number one killer of Americans in this country. It's not even close. It's not even like, well, only by a few hundred. Like, no, the metric is like way out there. And so we know that LDL, saturated fat, and red meat do not cause heart disease just by looking at the data, because we should see both of these numbers going down, and we don't. And so, yeah, all in all, I would say there's nothing to be. This whole LDL thing just blows my mind. And I love having the conversation. I love educating people and teaching them about this and talking about fat. The whole calorie in, calorie out idea is a joke. It doesn't work. That's why Weight Watchers, 95% of people fail on Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers will admit that. They have no issue with it because they know people will come right back to it. Same thing with Nutrisystem and all the pre-made food meals. They're not effective. They can cause you to lose weight. Absolutely. Listen, there's a million ways you can lose weight. I'm not here to debate that you could not lose weight on Weight Watchers. You probably could. You're not going to lose very much. Here's the problem. It's not sustainable. And it's very likely that the moment you get off of that diet, you're going to balloon back up. Because when you go on a calorie restrictive diet, you're not actually fixing the problem of your weight. Your weight you could be overweight for a lot of reasons. You could be overeating. That's certainly more than likely the big part of it. But your hormones could be way off, right? Your stress levels could be too high. You might be producing too much cortisol. There's a lot of things going on here. It's not simply just, well, stop eating as much. That's ridiculous. And by the way, you eat the number of calories that you are taking in is the number of calories that your body requires to operate. So when you deplete those calories, yeah, you can sustain that for some time, but after a while, your body will start to go, hey, I need these calories and I'm not getting them. And so you're going to start feeling tired and sluggish and not really good. You're going to start having serious cravings because your body is telling you, hey, I'm hungry. I need these calories. What are you doing? And those cravings could come in many, many forms, especially if you're on something like Weight Watchers where you're not restricting certain foods out of your diet. I know everybody hates the idea of cutting certain foods out of your diet. That's one of the biggest hangups I get with NSNG is people go, oh, I don't know if I could stop eating sugar. I don't know if I could stop eating bread. It's like, well, you should, at least for a while, or you should at least limit your bread intake to a few times a month at the very least. And the same thing with sugar. Because here's the thing: if you're not cutting out those carbohydrates and in the sucrose and the fruit and all that, when your body starts sending you cravings, what do you think it's going to crave? It's not going to crave, a plate of vegetables. It's going to crave the bread. It's going to crave the cupcake. It's going to crave something like that, and you're going to fall right back into it. And then before you know it, you're just off the program altogether. Anyway, I'm chasing rabbits here. So let me come back to what I was talking about. So yes, my blood pressure is way down. My resting BPM's down. My cholesterol, I haven't checked it again. I have no interest in checking it again. Maybe I will later this year, just for, just for schnitz and giggles. But I really have no interest in it. And and the frustrating thing is every time I go to my doctor, I went to my doctor, for an issue last year, and they wouldn't even talk to me about what I was there for without first lecturing me on how I need to go on a statin and my cholesterol's too high and there's a problem and I could have a heart issue. So just real quick, let me give you the rundown of what that was all about. My stomach was getting upset and I had no idea why. I was getting like this really weird nauseating sensation in my upper sternum stomach. Like it was weird. And so I thought, okay, what am I eating that's making me feel like crap? And so I started phasing everything out of my diet. Like everything I could think of. I stopped eating eggs for a little while. I stopped eating yogurt. I even stopped taking, my heart and soil supplements, which I'll talk about that here later. Nothing was working. Well, so for a month of this so the way it worked was like, I'd get up, right? I'd wake up in the morning, I'd have my coffee and my breakfast. And that's when I would feel nauseated and in a lot of discomfort. And then it would go away about 2 p.m., 2 or 3 p.m. And then I was fine. I would eat dinner and I could eat anything for dinner and it didn't have any effect on me whatsoever. So I'm like, okay, it's something I'm eating in the morning. And I cut everything out and I just could not figure it out, but I cut everything out but one thing. And unfortunately, I figured this out after I'd already scheduled my doctor appointment because I finally said something must be wrong with me. I obviously the food's not doing it. Something else is going on. I might have a problem. I need to go see my doctor. The day before my doctor's appointment, there was one thing I had not cut out of my diet, and it was coffee. I tried everything else, didn't work. And I was like, you know what? I did not want to stop drinking coffee. This is how pathetic I am. I'm like, no, I don't want it to be coffee because I like having my coffee. I need my coffee. I need my coffee for energy, blah, blah, blah. And so, all right, I like my morning coffee routine. Well, that Monday I cut it out. And Tuesday came, I had no symptoms, went to my doctor, told them what happened. And so here's the thing, before I could even get to any of that with my doctor, they went nuts. My doctor's like, listen, we need to talk about your cholesterol. It's very high. I'm like, it's really not. She goes, no, it really is. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not a problem. And she goes, it is a problem because you could have early onset heart disease, whatever. And she goes, and then I'm like, I know that, but I'm like, I'm here for my stomach. Listen, I'm not going to take a statin. I absolutely don't need it. I'm 34 years old. I don't think I don't think statins are effective or healthy, blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, what's going on with your stomach could be related to your heart. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And it was at that moment where I actually started getting, it was so weird because she was so pushy with going to see this lipidologist, so pushy with my cholesterol that I actually started to get very anxious sitting in that doctor's office because I felt like this person was trying to force something on me that I didn't want to do. And I started getting anxious because I was worried that I wasn't going to be treated for what I actually came in for, or they were going to try to trick me into, hey, this problem you have, it's because, your heart and your cholesterol, we need to get you on that statin. When I knew that's not the case. In fact, I probably had solved it. It was the coffee. And so, I think we talked for 30 minutes, folks, before I ever actually got to what I originally came in for. I was so frustrated. And so she goes, I just would really like you to go see a lipidologist. I'm like, fine, whatever. And of course I just told her that I'm not going to go I'm not spending the money to go see a lipidologist. I'm just not going to do it. And she goes, but I'm going to order an EKG because this could be heart related. I want to order an EKG and I'm going to order an ultrasound of your stomach and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, they did the EKG there. Guess what? shocker, my EKG came back perfect. Absolutely perfect. No problems whatsoever on my EKG. My heart is fine. I'm fine. Everything is good. I really wish they would drop it, but they didn't. So anyway, it ended up being coffee. Out of all that, I know. I continued to quit drinking coffee that whole week, and my symptoms went away. I have no idea why that suddenly happened. I was drinking coffee all year and felt fine, but out of nowhere, it just kind of hit me. So I don't know if, who knows, I've also heard, listen, people tell you coffee is healthy. Coffee's good for you. I am on the fence when it comes to coffee being healthy. And the only reason why I'm on the fence about it, I'm not going to sit here and say it's bad for you, and I'm not going to say it's good for you. And the reason why is because I don't think we really know. And the reason why we don't know is because the people who are telling you it's good for you generally are the people who sell it or have some sort of affiliation with it. And then there's the other people who are like, it's horrible for you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I really don't think it's bad, but I will say this. One thing I did learn is that mildew can form in your coffee grounds before you ever buy it. So there could be mold spores in the coffee. So on cheaper brands especially, that could be the case. So I was told that you should probably look into buying organic, and they'll tell you how they handle it, blah, blah, blah. And you'll have a lesser likely chance of buying a bag of coffee that could have these spores in it, which could cause indigestion problems and upset stomach. I told the person who's told me this, who's my chiropractor, great guy. I said, well, I don't drink Starbucks. That's all we drink. It's not like it's cheap coffee. And he goes, well, unfortunately, Starbucks has been known to have that issue too. He's like, just because they're, expensive doesn't mean that they're doing everything that they should. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I had no idea. But, so that was back in November. I haven't had coffee since, and I don't miss it. And I'll touch on that here in a little bit. So yeah, my energy levels are consistent. I'm not getting tired in the middle of the day. It's now, 6:00 PM. I worked on the house. I feel great. I'm just waiting on my dinner to get done here as soon as I'm done with this podcast, and I'll eat my dinner. In case if you were wanting to know what's for dinner, it is going to be a big steak, sweet potato, and avocado. I'm eating alone, and that is my meal alone of choice. I like a big piece of red meat, generally a sweet potato, and I will throw in the avocado in there just for a little extra fat. But that is what I love. So I'm not getting the 2:30 feeling. Like I said, I kicked the coffee back in November, not because I wanted to, but it was upsetting my stomach. So it is weird. To this day, I don't get it, but I don't miss it. I could probably go back to drinking it, but I don't really feel like I need to. At this point, like I said, before I kicked it, I thought I needed it. But now that I realize I really don't. And it's just one less thing to kind of be hooked to. So it's really good to know that I don't have to have my coffee every morning. And I like that. Now that I've done NSNG for well over a year, but I have since made some changes to my diet, and I want to cover those now. So, well, let's just say this. Since I've started my diet and health journey, I've sought to learn just about as much as I could about food, how it affects the body, and what we can do to live better lives. One thing I've learned is that food is 100% medicine, right? What we're putting into us has an effect on us more than you absolutely realize. I strongly believe that we've been misled or lied to about our diets and what is considered healthy and unhealthy. I believe that most, if not all, diseases, ailments, and other health-related issues start in the kitchen. They start in your gut and can be reversed with proper nutrition. So what are the things that I've learned and experienced firsthand since changing the way I eat? Well, first, let's explain NSNG for those of you who have not heard about it before. If you want an in-depth rundown, please go back and listen to the episode answering questions about NSNG. That was back in June. So go check that episode out. It's going to be a much more in-depth explanation of NSNG and how it works, especially if you're interested in actually getting on this diet. I know it's January, new year, new you. You're probably looking to lose a few pounds. This is the way to do it. This is how you're going to get your life back. This is how you're going to get your weight back, your health back. This is how it's done. For a quick rundown, NSNG stands for no sugar, no grains. And that means absolutely no sugar, including fruit, and nothing grain related like pasta or breads. This also includes avoiding things like seed oils that are extremely bad for us. I did an episode on this as well, titled Why Seed Oils Are Killing You. I strongly recommend you listen to that. That was back, I think, in January of last year. Strongly recommend you listen to that. I am going to do an update on seed oils. I've learned a lot more about the effects of it. For instance, just to kind of give you a quick rundown, a little brief explanation of some of the things I have learned. Seed oils, and now when I say seed oils, I mean canola oil, vegetable oil, palm oil, things like that. Grapeseed oil. These are highly processed oils. They're very, very bad for us. And unfortunately, they're putting them in just about everything you can eat. If you go down the center of any grocery aisle, I can guarantee you the food in those packages has some level of seed oil in it. Avoid it. I'm telling you, if there was one thing I could tell anybody to do, if you don't want to do the NSNG diet, that's fine. I don't care. But if there's one thing I would say is if you could avoid seed oils, like if you could cut out seed oil consumption in your life or minimize it to the very minimum, it will radically change who you are. You will probably lose weight just because of that. So, for instance, it can chemically alter your brain in such a way that it cannot communicate properly among receptors, primarily in the ones that handle hormone production. And since we know that weight loss and weight gain is primarily all about hormones, this is a big issue. One of the communicators it cuts off or blocks is the ability for your brain to release the hormone ghrelin to tell you when you're full. The feeling you get when you're full isn't your stomach filling with food or your stomach shrinking, as we like to say. That is actually a hormonal function that releases the sensation of satiety, right? So when you start to feel full, that's your body releasing this hormone saying, hey, we're good to go. You can stop eating now. We've got what we need. You ever wonder why you can eat an entire bag of Doritos, but not more than maybe one ribeye steak? This is why, among a few other reasons too, but that is the big one. So basically, NSNG is no sugar, no grains, and no processed foods. I did this diet strictly for almost a year, but I made a few changes around September of last year. So what did I change and why did I change it? Did NSNG not work? Did NSNG cause me to be unhealthy? Did I suffer from a health-related injury from this diet? The answer to all that is no. The diet worked great. And in fact, the longer I did the diet, the easier it was for me to keep going and keep doing it. By the summer, I had no desire to eat any of the foods that I usually would go nuts over. Things such as cakes, cookies, other sweets. I had a huge sweet tooth before this diet. I didn't miss pasta or bread. I could walk by the bakery at the grocery store and just smile and keep going with no sugar, no urges or cravings whatsoever by looking at any of that. I could smell the bread and the sweet cake, but it didn't do anything for me. The fact is my body had rid itself of the necessity to burn carbs and sugar for energy. I just didn't need it anymore. It was a pretty awesome moment, to be honest, and one that I hope everyone can enjoy too. It was a liberating feeling when you no longer crave certain foods or feel the need to have something sweet after a meal like I did. I actually found myself generally craving things like steak or other red meat. Much like you may crave a midnight snack, like something salty or sweet, by midday, I would get the hankering for a nice ribeye or a porterhouse. Just the idea of eating that steak made me salivate. And so that leads me to this. Through my time, I started to do more research. I really wanted to hone in on how to optimize my diet and live the best life that I could. And that's when I started learning about the carnivore diet. And that's when I began to make some subtle changes. Nothing major. What I started to do was lessen my priority on vegetables. As I learned about how many vegetables that we eat have plant defense chemicals in them to keep us from eating them. And it made sense because a lot of times when I would eat vegetables, I never really felt better. Sometimes I'd feel like crap. Now, these can do many things. These plant-based chemicals can do many things and affect everyone differently. I kind of touched on that earlier. Some may just give you gas and make you feel bloated, a little indigestion. Others could cause you to have like an autoimmune flare-up like eczema, dry, itchy skin, breakouts, or rash. The truth is, with veggies, there's no one answer that really fits all. And I still eat them on occasion, but I just don't prioritize them like I used to. And I think in this situation, you should do the same thing. You should, when you eat vegetables, be honest with yourself and say, how do I feel after I eat certain vegetables? I know, for instance, I know to avoid kale, spinach, especially raw spinach, and just about any other leafy green. I stopped eating salads. I think I had one salad in the last 3 or 4 months. I stopped doing it. So what I do though is I listen to my body. If I have a negative reaction to those vegetables, then I avoid them, period. I don't go back to them. I actually found out that it's kind of hit or miss, but yellow squash sometimes messes up my stomach. It's really weird. Now, zucchini does not. So what I generally eat without issue is zucchini, green zucchini, cauliflower, sweet potato. I don't do too bad with mushrooms either. However, mushrooms have a chemical that can block your body from absorbing nutrients. So that is kind of a problem. So I try to limit those as well. But every once in a while, I do like having mushrooms. I love portobellos with my spaghetti and other dishes that I cook. So I will throw them in there, but I don't eat them that often. They're kind of expensive. So you're probably thinking, where do I get my vitamins and nutrients? I must be tired and miserable. Well, you already told you, I feel great. My energy levels are through the roof. And the answer is really simple. I've replaced vegetables and fruit as my nutrient, like where I get my vitamins and minerals from, with organs, primarily beef organs. Now I know what you're thinking. Gross. That's disgusting, man. Beef organs. I could never do that. I had a liver today for breakfast. I had a big slice of liver with some eggs. It was good. You'd be surprised if you've never had it. I strongly recommend you try it. The thing with liver, is that it doesn't taste bad. It tastes pretty good. It just has a weird texture to it. So if you're a texture person, you may be like, I can't get behind it. But what I found to counter the texture issue that I was kind of having was just mixing it with my eggs. Like I would take a piece of scrambled egg and a piece of the liver and eat it together. And you don't notice the kind of soft texture of the liver. It all kind of feels the same. I generally don't eat like fresh organs. I don't generally buy beef heart or liver or anything from the store and cook it up. What I normally do, and the reason why I don't is because it's not readily available, and I don't know where it's coming from. So I get a little bit weary about the freshness or the quality of those organs. So what I do, and what I recommend you would do, especially if you don't want to eat the organs, you couldn't stomach it. Fine, fair enough. I understand. I actually get my organs in desiccated form from a company called Heart and Soil. It allows me to get all the benefits of eating organ meat, but in a simple capsule. Okay. So what it is, it's 100% natural. It contains no synthetic vitamins like you would get from things like a One A Day or Nature's Made. That means it's 100% bioavailable nutrients in those capsules. And so that is how I keep up with my nutrients. And also keep in mind too, that meat has tons of bioavailable nutrients as well. So red meat, especially red meat, for all the bad rap that red meat gets, like red meat has everything you need in it. It has so many nutrients. It's got the fat, the protein, it's B vitamins, B12. B12 is not found anywhere else, folks. It's only in animal meat. So if someone tells you the animal meat's bad for you, ask them where they get their B12 from. If they don't know, then they're probably not getting it, and it's going to cause them to have some serious brain function issues later on down the road. So vegans, they supplement. That's how they do it. It's plain and simple. They take a synthetic supplement, just like a Nature's Made B12 vitamin. That's what they do. They have to. If they don't, they'll get very sick. That goes to tell you that the vegan diet is not actually the way we're supposed to eat. Okay. If we were not supposed to eat meat, then we wouldn't need the B12 vitamin for brain function, but we do. It's one of the most important vitamins for our brain. And that's why studies have shown that people who are on long-term vegan diets are at higher risk for things like Alzheimer's, dementia, and other brain-related problems. So with that, I can say I am thriving on these supplements. And I strongly recommend that you add organs to your diet, either in desiccated form or normal fresh organs like liver, heart, spleen, whatever you want to do. It's primarily liver. If you can eat liver, great. And I've heard that cow heart is actually very similar to steak when you slice it up. My grocery store every once in a while has cow heart. So I probably am going to pick some of that up and try it and cook some up because I like the liver. I thought it was very good. I probably will like the heart too. So that was a change that I made over before the summer. And the reason why I added organs was not to replace veggies, not at first. I actually did this because I was experiencing a lot of brain fog. And now this brain fog was off and on well before I started my diet. So it wasn't an NSNG thing per se. But my chiropractor, once again, he recommended I take organs because I may be lacking in some of those key nutrients on my restrictive diet. And truth be told, I probably was just lacking on them before the diet because, like I said, I was having the brain fog before. I was having huge fluctuations in my energy levels and in my mood. I was having mood swings before I was on the diet. So once I started taking Heart and Soil beef organ supplement, it's just a basic beef organ supplement. They have a lot of different stuff that targets different things, but I started with just the generic beef organs. I started to notice the difference after about a week. And since then, the fog has been gone. And I felt so much better. So clearly it was a lack of nutrients. I'm not sure what I could have done differently to get those nutrients because I'm not really quite sure what it was I was deficient in. Maybe I could have done a blood test to find out, but taking these capsules has fixed that for me. I could very easily ditch the capsules and go to real fresh liver, fresh organs in that way if I wanted to. But these capsules are just very convenient, and I can take them every day and not have to worry about, does the supermarket have the organ meat or not? And so the interesting thing about that too, and I want to touch on it, is I was already taking a multivitamin. So when my chiropractor recommended that, I was actually kind of skeptical at first. I was like, I don't know, man. I'm already on a multivitamin. But it wasn't doing anything. As always, I would always start a multivitamin and then I'd feel better for about like a week. And then I would go back to feeling the exact same way. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that. I'd be curious. If you have, I would love to know. Just hit me up on Instagram or Twitter and tell me, have you had similar experiences with a over-the-counter multivitamin, like a one a day or something, where it seems like it's working for like the first week, but then after that, it doesn't really feel like it's ever doing anything. But one of the things I found out is that most over-the-counter vitamins have a ton of nasty fillers. Some have silica in them. I mean, that's definitely not good for you. And two, it's a synthetic and it's not natural. So one thing about synthetic vitamins, studies are starting to show that our bodies do not absorb synthetic vitamins in the same way that they do natural foods. So the natural nutrients that we find in like vegetables, meat, organs especially, it's much more bioavailable. And what we're finding out with these synthetic vitamins is they don't necessarily get absorbed properly or at all into our body. It doesn't always absorb them in the same amount each time you take them. So it could be that you don't take in very much at all or any at all when you take your multivitamin in the morning. So it was no wonder why I was having no luck with those things. But with the beef organ supplement, it's all natural. My body can absorb it like I just ate a plateful of beef organs. So that I've got that going. The next change came much later, and around September. So this was about, just before the end of the year. And this one was big in that it technically took me off of NSNG. One of the things that happened about 4 or 5 months into an NSNG is I started developing awful foot cramps. Over the course of the year, it wasn't all the time, but it was often enough where it was like, good grief. And it was usually when I'd be laying in bed at night, my toes would just lock up. It was really bad. And now I drank plenty of water and I always made sure to get my electrolytes. I was monitoring how much water I drank, making sure I was salting my food, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't seem to really work in terms of fixing these cramps. I'm like, I just figured I'm not getting the electrolytes I need. Something's probably, it's my fault. It's not the diet. But that's when I started to learn when I started to research the carnivore diet. And I started listening to a gentleman called, he's the Carnivore MD, Dr. Paul Saladino. I'd strongly recommend you listen to his podcasts. They're very informative. He cites all of his sources. He has a lot of peer review studies he goes over, but he's the one of the founders of carnivore. A lot of people started it. He was one of the big names in it. But one of the things he did, he was eating nothing but meat. So he would only eat red meat and organs. And he did that for many years. But he started to realize that he was having issues. He would wake up with heart palpitations. He would have really bad leg cramps. And so he started noticing that there was some things wrong with him. And through his studies, he found out that there are some benefits to a low carb intake. So what is this? I've learned that it's good to take in a small amount of carbohydrates. These carbs help with many functions, including kidney function. That allows our kidneys to get the electrolytes to key muscles to optimize their performance. It also helps with their muscle healing. It helps regulate our insulin sensitivity, not to be confused with insulin resistance. Those are two different things. Insulin sensitivity is when your liver produces insulin whenever you take in sugar, and it produces the proper amount of insulin. It's a natural process and one that honestly should be celebrated. It means that you're healthy. It means your liver is doing what it's supposed to do. Does the insulin function come with blood sugar spikes that result in being tired, cranky, or other irregularities? No, not if it's performing as it should and you're not overeating carbohydrates. So what carbs should you eat? What do I recommend? Well, first of all, from my research, the best carbs to eat are the ones with the least amount of plant-based toxins, okay? So not vegetables. In this case, I would say fruit and raw honey, period. Dairy is a great one too, but you may be sensitive to it. However, you may want to try raw dairy, as it's been shown to go over better for people with a lactose intolerance. And there's something about bacteria and enzymes in the raw milk that are killed when it's pasteurized, leaving some other bad enzymes lingering to create the gut issues. So I know I've seen a lot of people talk about they cannot drink milk, but they could drink raw milk just fine. So there's things that we're learning, right? Pasteurization is a blessing in many ways, and in other ways it might actually be hurting us. And in the case of our dairy products. But David, you say, fruit has sugar and honey. Well, that's just pure sugar. You'll undo everything you've done over the last year. I know. I mean raw honey. You might as well drink a Coke. That's what I thought anyway, right? When I heard this from Dr. Paul Saladino, I was like, no way, dude. I told myself, no way. But I learned that I was wrong. But I actually started with raw honey first. I started phasing into my diet, and here's why. So raw honey was the first thing that convinced me to, it was a little easier to convince me to start eating raw honey because of this reason. There was a clinical trial that they did. Again, I know we spoke about this earlier. The trials are kind of hit or miss, but I believe this one actually has a really good validity to it because it does have side-by-side comparisons that I think there's some outcomes to this diet, to this study that really hold some pretty serious weight. So clinical trials have shown that raw unprocessed honey reduces plasma glucose levels, C-reactive proteins, homeocysteine, and blood lipid levels in healthy, diabetic, and hyperlipidemia subjects in direct comparison to things like dextrose and sucrose. In this trial, patients with hyperlipidemia, which is increased triglycerides, so that means increased fat in your blood, the natural honey lowered the triglycerides while the artificial honey increased them. Interesting thing to note. Natural honey also lowered LDL-C while the artificial honey increased it. And so the artificial honey in this study was basically sucrose. It was basically just sugar made out to look like honey. In diabetic patients, honey caused a lower rise of plasma glucose than dextrose and reduced blood lipids, homeocysteine, and C-reactive proteins in these diabetic patients as well. So what does this show? Honey had a positive effect on normal and diabetic patients compared to sugar and fructose, and a much milder negative effects in diabetic patients. Honey is high in nitric oxide metabolites, which especially when it's raw and unfiltered. Nitric oxide metabolites deficiency may play a role in histamine responses and allergies, inflammation, and influence metabolic function. And the nitric oxide content may be one of the reasons why it functions differently than pure sucrose when consumed. With this said, how much honey do I consume? Well, I usually eat about a spoonful or so a day. That's about as much as I generally eat. It really depends on what I'm doing. If I know I'm going to have a very light day and I'm not going to be on my feet, like for instance, doing what I do for a living, then I may just skip it, and I may just skip it that day or have a very small amount with my high fat, 10% milk fat Greek yogurt. Some days I do 2 spoonfuls. It all really depends, but that's about the max for me. I try to keep it to a minimum because you can still overdo it with honey. Even with all the benefits that I just said, honey, you can still very easily overdo it. So just go easy. No more than 2 or 3 tablespoons a day, probably for the most of us. If you're an athlete, someone who's very active, who is on their feet constantly, you're a professional athlete, or you're someone who performs quite a lot, you may want to increase that. The thing that you have to do is you have to be honest with yourself. You have to pay attention to what your body's telling you. And so for me, I do just enough work where I feel like 1 or 2 tablespoons a day is just fine. And the next thing I began to add into my diet was fruit. I thought the honey was good, and now I said, okay, I want to replace vegetables with fruit, because fruit is going to be much better for me. Now, I will admit, I don't eat fruit all that often, but I now prioritize it over vegetables every time, period. In other words, if there was a fruit tray and a veggie tray in front of me, I'm not touching the vegetables, period. I'm eating the fruit. So why this change? Well, the cramps for one, and because I needed to add some carbs back into my diet. Okay. So I believe the healthiest and least toxic carbohydrate is fruit because it contains the least amount of plant-based toxins. Why? Because this is part of the plant it wants you to eat. Okay. Plants can't get up and run away from us, right? They don't have legs. And yes, they're living. Sorry, vegans. They have developed ways to keep animals and humans from basically wiping them out, and that's a defense chemical. You know, they don't want you to eat them and kill them. They want to be able to thrive and reproduce, and these chemicals are a way to kind of reduce that situation from happening. Fruit is different because this is how the plant actually reproduces. It wants you to take it. It wants you to eat it. And in the case of animals, eat the fruit, crap it out somewhere so the seeds germinate. That's what happens. And so the cycle would continue. So no wonder as we see fruit with its bright colors and sweet flavors that are pleasing to our taste buds or pleasing to our palate, fruit is very delicious. It's practically screaming to us to eat it, right? It looks good. It tastes good. Everything about it's like, yeah, that's appealing. You know, have you ever noticed how so many vegetables are bitter and need something added to them to be palatable? I mean, raw kale alone, good luck with that. You can eat raw kale by all means, but it tastes awful. It's bitter and it needs something usually sweet. What do we always do? We put sweet sauces, sweet dressings on salad to make it taste better. We dress up the salad with things like fruit all the time because the bitterness of the vegetables is not pleasing to our palate. Generally speaking, we can develop the taste for it, which is what we end up doing as adults because we always say it's our palate maturing, which is generally the case. We begin to enjoy things that are more bitter, but that is actually a defense in our brain for children. The reason why children don't like bitter food and they prefer sweet food is because if the child was in the wild trying to survive, like we were thousands of years ago, we would avoid bitter food because bitter tends to be toxic, right? If you eat something bitter, that you could be poisonous. So that is our brain's way of saying, whoa, that's probably not good for us. Don't eat it. And so when you eat something sweet and delicious, like a piece of fruit, well, that's healthy and it's okay and it's tasty. So yeah, fruit, fruit it's ready as is. You don't have to doctor it up. It's loaded with tons of vitamins and nutrients that are generally more bioavailable than some vegetables because some veggies will block your body's ability to absorb them. That's part of their plant-based chemicals. That's like kidney beans, black beans. Most beans have that unfortunate ability to block your body's ability to absorb nutrients. It's kind of a problem. So eat fruit, eat honey, take joy when your liver produces the necessary insulin for it and your kidneys function is needed to give you strong and healthy muscles. But what about being fat adaptive and ketosis, right? And running on fat, because that's what I've been preaching for the last year and a half. I run on fat. I run on fat and protein. And I've talked about the importance of being in dietary ketosis. Well, I still operate on fat. I haven't changed that. I still prioritize fat and protein like I always have. I still eat full fat foods often, every day. Have I gained any weight? No. As I spoke about earlier in the podcast, I've not gained any weight since adding fruit and honey back onto my diet. Now, with fruit, it's the same thing as honey. How much fruit do I eat? I generally eat a piece of fruit in the morning with my breakfast. And the reason why I do that is because I know I'm going to go to work and those carbohydrates are going to be utilized throughout the day. I will sometimes have a piece of fruit for dinner, but not often. Generally, just because it doesn't go with whatever I'm cooking. But yeah, one piece of fruit a day for me is fine. Again, it really depends. How much fruit should you have? Well, that depends on who you are. If you're someone who works behind a desk all day and is not very active, you might want to limit yourself to a piece of fruit a day or just a couple pieces of fruit a week. Your body, remember, these carbohydrates we're putting in there is for performance, right? It's for us to be able to function at a higher level. So if you're someone who's not very active, that's okay. There's no judgment here, but you may find even doing NSNG for over a year, you may find that you don't have cramps. You don't have any problem. You don't have any desire to consume the carbohydrates, and that's fine. You need to do what's going to be best for you. But if you are going to do it, I would say, listen to your body, start off with a little bit here and there. If you feel like you need more, then add to it. But you need to be honest with yourself, but you also need to control yourself. So I still run on fat. I still eat fat foods often. I have not gained any weight. Have I lost the ability to go without eating for long periods of time? Nope. In fact, the other day I did it and it was just fine. I can go most of the day without eating. And that's because fruit and honey are not the same as bread or candy or Coke. It just isn't. It does not function the same way inside your body. And your body is quite capable of taking on carbohydrates and breaking them down into energy and prioritizing them and getting and burning those carbs very, very easily, especially if it's low carb. If you're a low carb diet, you're going to have no problem there at all, and now, with this said, could you overeat fruit? Like I said earlier, yeah, you can definitely overeat fruit just like honey, but it's difficult to do. That's some other thing about this diet, or about the adding fruit and honey into your diet. It's probably a little easy to overeat honey, but it's very difficult to overeat fruit. It's just, the beauty of fruit is it causes satiety very quickly. Generally speaking, you could easily pound down a couple pieces of fruit, but you're going to find out really quick, oh, I'm getting full, right? That's just what happens. It's, if you get a sugar craving, grab a piece of fruit, that'll nip it quickly in the butt, and the fiber also will help make you feel full. So all those things together will help bring on satiety. It's very difficult to overeat fruit, but you can. So just be very careful. So yes, I'm no longer 100% NSNG anymore. I'm now a cross between the carnivore diet and NSNG, because I find that that's what works best for me. I know a few people who are strictly NSNG and are doing great, did not experience the cramping like I did, and good for them. I say stay the course. That's the beauty of this, and that's the thing about being on a diet, is it's all about being honest with yourself. You have to pay attention to what your body's telling you. You have to pay attention to what the outcomes are, and then you have to just be honest with yourself. Is it working? Is it not working? Does this feel better? Does this feel worse? If I did this, does it get better? You just have to have those conversations. It's not simple. You can't plug and play in life, folks. You gotta pay attention to what you're doing. I believe ketosis and NSNG are a great tool, something that will definitely work for everyone. Do I believe? I believe that NSNG is the perfect diet to optimally lose weight, keep the weight off. It's the best diet to reverse type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and many other metabolic syndromes, dysfunctions. I think it's really NSNG, in my opinion, NSNG and carnivore, whichever one you choose to do, or if you choose to do a cross between the two, and even the keto diet to some degree, even though the keto diet's been kind of bastardized, a lot of those foods out there that are keto friendly are not keto friendly, but those are the most optimal way to lose weight. And it's the most optimal way to keep the weight off because you're not starving yourself. You're not preventing yourself from taking in so many calories. What you're doing is you're reprogramming, you're rehardwiring your brain to operate on more than just carbohydrates. You're optimizing your body to burn fat, to prioritize fat. And that's a good thing. That means you're not going to overeat. You're going to burn what you put in, and you'll even burn what you have stored up. And so even if you go off of this diet, which I know someone recently who did NSNG for a few months, lost a lot of weight, and then went off the diet for the rest of the year, they never gained their weight back. They stayed the same. And the reason why is because they've hardwired themselves to burn and prioritize fat. And that's a good thing. And so that's another reason why this diet is so, just works better than other diets. It's the reason why you can stay on it longer, or it doesn't, it's not something that's going to just wear off immediately after you get off of it. So I don't believe you have to be keto to thrive. I don't believe you have to be on dietary ketosis to thrive. I think dietary ketosis is actually more of a useful tool than a lifestyle. I think if you're in dietary ketosis, first of all, a lot of people will tell you they're in ketosis, and they're probably not. You really have to ingest absolutely no carbohydrates whatsoever to be in dietary ketosis. And sometimes it can take weeks before you ever actually go into ketosis. So it's actually very difficult to get there. And once you're there, you cannot have any carbohydrates. It will throw you out of it. Dietary ketosis is very useful. I think it is the most efficient way to lose weight. And I also think it is the most efficient way to reset your body, to improve yourself, and to fix all of those metabolic dysfunctions. But I don't think it's necessary to do long term. In fact, it could actually cause issues long term. I think, like I said, it is a tool at your disposal to fix something that's going on within your body. And that said, if you're starting this journey and you need to lose weight or have to reverse your diabetes, or should you, let's say you have a metabolic dysfunction, should you eat fruit and honey? The answer is no. While you're starting out, you should avoid all sugar, in my opinion. NSNG is the fastest, most efficient way to reverse these issues, and eating fruit at the beginning stage could slow that process down. Yes, you could eat fruit and honey in the very beginning, but I strongly recommend that you don't, because the reason why what we want to do here is we're re-hardwiring your brain, right? You get cravings. You get cravings for something sweet. You get cravings for that bread. You get cravings for all those things that you know you're not supposed to eat, like the Doritos or the chips or whatever else. We have to fix that. So in order to fix that, we have to cut it all out. We got to go full nuclear here and cut out all those foods. So absolutely no sugar, absolutely no grain, nothing. And the reason why I'm saying absolutely no grain is because some people will tell you that another good carbohydrate is white rice. It's the least toxic of the rices. Yes, but some people still have a problem with white rice affecting their body. So be very careful too there. Listen to your body. If you eat white rice and you swell up or you have some sort of reaction to it, even if it's just feeling tired, that's a reaction. You may not want to eat it. So absolutely no sugar, absolutely no grain in the beginning. So this is what I tell everyone. We're trying to re-hardwire your brain. We're trying to get you off of this dependency on sugar, especially sugar. That's the biggest culprit. Figure out, first off, this is what you should do. If you want to do this diet, this is what you got to do. You got to be honest with yourself. Figure out what it is you want to lose or achieve. What is your goal on this diet? Is it to lose 20 pounds or 300 pounds or simply just to get healthy? Maybe you're not overweight, but you just want to optimize your health. Whatever that is, just figure it out. Then go full NSNG, 30 days, 60 days, a year, however long it takes for you to hit those markers. I used to tell people, do it for 30 days and then see where you're at. It's not enough time. It really isn't. I tried. I know we tell people 30 days. We tell people 60 days because it doesn't seem as overwhelming to just do something for 30 days. But the reality is, I've read reports of women taking the longest time to reverse their carb and sugar dependency, as long as 4 months, where others take a couple of weeks. It just depends on who you are. It depends on how bad off you are, how metabolically broken you are, how overweight you are. It may take a long time. So don't set figure out what you want to do, but don't put a time restriction on it. Just say, I'm going to do this because I see how well it works for everybody else. I'm seeing the positive it's doing for people's lives. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it for as long as I have to hit my markers. If that means it's only 30 days, great. If it's a year, fine. If it takes 5 years, whatever. So to say that you should just do it for 30 days minimum, but that really just doesn't cut it. And look, folks, the reality of it is NSNG and carnivore, it's not a temporary thing. All right. It's not a temporary diet. This is a lifestyle. Okay. This isn't like a fad diet. You do it for a couple of weeks and you go back to doing what you were doing before. This is a lifestyle. You don't do this for a couple of weeks and go back to eating Ho-Hos and McDonald's on the regular. You just don't do it. This is a lifestyle change. It's why I don't like to say I'm on a diet anymore. I don't tell people, this is just how I eat. I've been eating this way for over a year. It's safe to say it's permanent, and you should look at it that way too. It's okay. I know that's hard. I get it. It's like, man, dude, he's like, I love cake and I love this and I just can't imagine giving up my bread. You need to be honest with yourself, right? And sometimes it takes getting to a point in your life where you've had enough and you said, that's it, I can't take it anymore. And you are finally willing to give up the things that you know aren't good for you. And so you just have to be honest. Are you even ready for this mentally? Because this is a mental game. This is mental warfare. Your body is addicted. You are addicted to food. You're addicted to sugar. You're addicted to the Coca-Colas, the cake. You're addicted to the bread and the carbs and the pasta. You're addicted to it. That's why you tell people, oh, I couldn't give that up. And we don't think anything of it because it's food, right? We don't assume it's a bad thing. We don't treat it like drugs. The reality is if someone walked up to you and said, oh, I just couldn't give up cocaine, you'd be like, dude, you need to go get help. Like, that's a bad thing. But the reality is this is equally as dangerous because food is medicine. And if you're putting bad food in you, it could cause so many problems for you. It could give you cancer. It could give you metabolic dysfunction, like we spoke about earlier, right? It could cause you to be in the hospital so more often than not. Inflammation. It could mess up your your gut microbiome, which is extremely important. We just found out that the disease that Michael J. Fox has, Parkinson's, is that right? People with a bad microbiome tend to develop that disease. So again, we're starting to learn here, folks. Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, all of these things are started in the gut. Why do you think that is? It's because of what you're putting in it. So yeah, you can tell yourself, I'm not going to give it up and I'm not addicted, but you are. If you can't give up certain foods, you're addicted to them. And that can be very detrimental to your health. Set your goals and attack them. Once you hit your goals, then you can decide to add fruit and raw honey to your diet, like I did. You may find no interest in to do it at all. You may find you don't need it. Or you might be like me and find it helps with your performance overall. And of course, once you hit those markers, you can always have the occasional cookie or date night at a nice Italian restaurant. It's okay because you've done the work. You're done. It's okay. And you won't blow up or reverse everything you did. It's not like you're not going to have, if you do this diet, you lose 300 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever you lose, and now you're healthy and you're thriving. You're just feeling great. You're hitting the gym. You're doing marathons. Life is good, right? Your sex life is better, right? You're performing better in bed. Yeah, that is a thing. This will help improve your sex life 100%. Don't believe me? Try it. I would bet my reputation. Men, if you're listening to this right now and you're not dieting, do the NSNG for 6 months and tell me your sex life doesn't get better. I personally guarantee you, you will have better you-know-whats. Firmer, longer, stronger, harder. Big time. Guarantee it. Why? Because this diet improves your heart function. Your heart's going to become more efficient. Your muscles are going to become more efficient. Your blood flow is going to be better than it ever has been. And that's all part of it. Blood flow is a huge thing when it comes to both men and women during intercourse. It's just true. If you have bad blood flow, if you're someone who has a really bad heart or anything, you're going to suffer. So I didn't mean to get off path there. But once you've hit all these markers, you can, of course, have the occasional cheat day. And you're not going to lose everything you've accomplished overnight because you went out and had a cookie. Or you went out to an Italian restaurant with the wife or the husband and had a nice date night and you had a big old plate of pasta. I have a confession to make. I went off diet between Christmas and New Year. The whole week I was eating whatever I wanted. And that's what I did. I ate anything I wanted. I had cake. I had some homemade biscuits. It was great. And I've actually found it quite fascinating to see the effect that it was having on my body while it happened, because I've been to a point where if I cheated, it was only maybe once or twice a month. I have never gone a full week, between Christmas and New Year, eating whatever I wanted all day long. And it was interesting to see how my body was reacting to it. For instance, my skin dried out. I got itchy. My gut went haywire. I became irregular. Those were just a few things. But needless to say, I went back on the diet promptly on January 1st. There's no doubt about it. And I'll admit, it was actually quite hard to a little bit there for that first week. I felt like that's when it becomes problematic. Is the one day of cheat is not the problem. It's when you go 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. The longer you start to cheat and go off from this diet, the harder it is to get back on it. And I actually found on January 1st, it was difficult to revert back to a whole year's worth of work. But I've been good the rest of the month. I did start to develop cravings again, which sucked. But thankfully those are starting to subside and go away. That being said, be careful when you cheat, be real with yourself. And if you'll fall off the wagon, then just don't do it. If if I have a little taste of something sweet in my mouth, like if I get a piece of that cake, I'm doomed. I'm going to fall off this diet for 4 weeks. You have to be honest with yourself in that situation and maybe say, maybe it's a good idea that I don't eat that piece of cake. I don't cheat. So yeah, that's the update. I eat fruit and honey. I limit my veggies to a few that I know that don't really mess me up too bad or at all. And as I said in the past episodes, I prioritize red meat over every other type of meat. The old homage of, you should only have red meat twice a week. I reverse that. I have red meat every day. And on occasion, I will eat chicken or pork twice a week. By doing this, I'm thriving. My weight is great. My overall health is so much better. Not to mention my anxiety that I was suffering with is finally gone. Used to have really bad bits of anxiety that I'm, if you're someone who has any level of mental health, if you're having mental health issues and you haven't tried changing your diet, I strongly recommend you do. You probably don't have to go as extreme as NSNG, but you may find that cutting out certain foods may help with your anxiety. And I would say primarily sugar and processed seed oils. Those are the two things that I would say, if you're suffering from anxiety, mental health issues, try that. If I was a therapist, if I was a psychologist, I would actually probably do this first before I ever put you on a medication. And I'm sure that there's some people who will, raise hell over that. But, if we could naturally get you back into regulation, because what we know that so much of what we eat affects our brain function and our hormones. Sometimes just removing certain things off your diet could fix your problem altogether. Your diet has a massive effect on your mood and your mental health, hands down. There's no denying it. That's just scientific proof. That's a fact. And I used to get really weird bits of anxiety, just where I would get real nervous and anxious, and it would cause all kinds of issues. It got better over the last couple of years, but it was always there. I was able to manage it. So it didn't go away. I was managing it, right? Which is never fun. You want those things to just go away so you don't have to deal with them. Well, they finally have since being on this diet. So that's a big thing. And honestly, folks, like that I would love to do a show just on that alone. And I would love to get somebody in here with me that is a professional therapist or psychologist who could really kind of add to this, because I really think we could be solving a lot of we talk about the mental health crisis in this country and how it's such a problem. I believe that we could really reverse this problem dramatically if people would change their diet. I think the Western diet, what these kids are being fed, is a huge contributor to their mental health dysfunction. And I think it's the sugar. I think it's the grain. I don't necessarily blame grain, but I do blame the sugar. I blame processed seed oils. Processed seed oils are in everything. We're getting too much of it in our diet. And it's causing a lot of issues. So yeah. And yes, I know a few people will be smiling right now because I was so anti-fruit for most of this diet. And yes, I was wrong about it. But I can admit that I was wrong. I am perfectly fine with admitting when I'm wrong about something. This is more than just doing a diet for me, and just losing weight. This is a journey. This is a journey for me to learn as much as I can learn, to maximize my health, to try to be the best person I could possibly be for my wife, for my family, whatever, for myself. So this means I'll grow and I'll continue to research, and that may lead me to changing my opinion on something. But I will say I will say this. I did not mention the fruit and honey until I tried it myself for a few months. So that's one thing I will say. I wanted to make sure I saw all and any changes from this edition before I recommended it to anybody else. And nothing changed for me except I lost the cramps, right? Better muscle health and healing, massive balance in hormones and mood. A lot of things improved for me. Nothing got bad, didn't gain weight, didn't feel crappy, didn't get weird blood sugar spikes that would cause me to have mood swings or anything like that. Yes, my blood sugar is going to spike when I eat fructose. It's just normal, but it's not in such a way that it's harmful for you. So I will always try my best to give the best advice to you. And any advice I give on my program, on this show, will be something I actually do or have done. I'll never lie, cheat, or manipulate the facts for an agenda. I have no agenda here. This is just my show. This is where I talk about things I'm passionate about. And this is one of those things. The reality is if I find out a month from now that NSNG will actually kill us, then I'll tell you and I'll jump off that train. But so far, thankfully, it's been nothing but good outcomes and a lot of good outcomes for thousands of other people. So on that note, folks, I thank you so much for joining me on this updated episode for NSNG. I hope that you've learned something from it all. I hope that maybe it's inspired you to get your health back. Take your health back. Listen, we don't have a lot of things that we can control in this world. We don't control politics. We can't control who's president. We can't control what Congress is doing. We can try to vote, blah, blah, blah. We can't control how our day is going to go. We could get in a car accident. We could have the best day of our life. You never really know. But this is one of the very few things that you do have control over. And when you do take control of your health and you do what you know is right, then you're going to thrive. You don't have to worry about expensive medical bills or prescriptions because you're going to kick those things because you're going to start to feel a lot better. So folks, please, if you haven't thought about it or you're thinking about it or you're already doing it, keep going, set up a plan. Don't wait till next week. Don't wait till, this time. Do it now. Start now. You'll thank yourself when you do. Because listen, I have no regrets from going on this diet. I have felt so much better. And if I could jump to the tallest building in the world and scream it as loud as I could so everyone could hear it, I would. That's how passionate I am and how much I believe in this. So thank you so much, guys, for listening. If you want to reach out to me, maybe you're on this diet or you're doing a different diet or you have an opinion or you want to just tell me to F off, that's fine. You can hit me up at davidking.therant@gmail.com. You can also hit me up at The Rant with David King on Facebook. You can hit me up on Twitter, The Real DM King. Tweet at me. I'll tweet back. Always love hearing from you guys. And yeah, part 5 of The Walking Dead, that's coming up this week too, so look forward to that. I'm also going to be doing a quick little rundown of my first impressions of The Last of Us, which is on HBO. And just tell you right now, first episode was great. And I'll touch on a little bit reason why. Not going to be a very long episode because it's only one. It was only the first episode that launched. So this podcast won't be very long, but I do want to kind of give you my first impressions. Thank you so much, folks. Have a great night. Take control of your health. Do what's best. We love you. I'll talk to you soon. Look for that Walking Dead special. Take care.